My name is Bridget Gallagher. I'm the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement here at Westchester University. First, I want to thank you all for joining us for the WCU 150th History and Heritage Exhibition Lecture and Tour Series. This has been going on throughout the year. We're really excited to be wrapping it up over the next week. Before we begin tonight, I would like to invite all of you to join us next Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. For our final lecture and tour series event. It'll be focusing on sustainability here at Westchester University. You can also you can register and find all of our recordings at wcualumni.org. Just a couple housekeeping notes for this evening. We would say that we would ask that all of you remain on mute throughout the presentation, and that at the end you will be invited to ask questions of our presenters this evening on any of the sculptures that you see on campus throughout this tour. For the best experience, we do recommend that you watch this evening with the speaker view. You can find that control up at the right-hand side of your screen, and that way you'll be able to view the whole series in full screen. So with that, I would like to pass it off to the WCU Museum Director, Michael Giovine, to get us started.
Hi, thanks, Bridget, and thanks everyone for being here. Welcome to our second to last of these. We've been doing this all year. Now it's nice outside. People are outside more, so hopefully we don't need to be doing so many Zooms. But we did want to, conclude our thematic tour and lecture series with two really interesting tours. So as Bridget said, next week, next Tuesday, we're going to have a tour of the pump house, the geothermal pump house, and also a tour of the Westchester University Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology's Earth Day at 50 exhibition. So we're not going to be in this room. So this is the last time one of these tours is going to be in here. And it's a really great one to end with, because we're going to talk about the arts at Westchester, and especially, of course, the outdoor sculptures that you're about to see with John Baker. I'm Michael D. Giovine. I'm an associate professor of anthropology here at Westchester University, the director of the Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology, which is located in the Old Library, and also director of our Museum Studies program, which is a minor degree program in which students learn the ins and outs of museum work. They take, seminars on theory on museums. They do collections care and management. They do some art history. I know you're an art history minor as well. They do a lot of history, and you guys are history majors. And of course, the big capstone of this is to curate an exhibition from start to finish. So we've been really fortunate. I mean, we had some these two especially. Everyone has been great. All the student co-curators. But I have Aaron Stoyack, who's done a lot of these, and also Maddy Maychak. They're responsible for a lot of the intellectual heft of this exhibition. And very quickly, before I pass it over to John Baker over at EO Bull to give you the tour, we wanted to say a couple words about this exhibition, right? So when we were planning this, right, it was a year-long process to kind of plan this out. We thought about the big idea. What was the big idea of this exhibit? What did we want people to come away with when they saw this?
That throughout their 150 years, advances in academics, student life, and diversity, equity, and inclusion have really created the sense of campus unity that we have today.
Sure, yeah, it's kind of like a lot of these transformative properties as well. And I think, one of the things that we wanted to do when we were talking right back when it was all on Zoom, right before we even got in here, was that we needed a timeline, as well as these like deep dives into these different themes that Aaron just talked about. One of those is just the arts. But really, as we were looking at right before this, I mean, we have art everywhere. The arts and humanities and expression of what it is to be human. It's what it is to be this university. And so I think, Aaron, and Maddy, you're going to take us around a little bit, a little later as John is going between places to show a little bit of this exhibition. But, Maddy, we did this big timeline, and you two really researched it. You put up and designed all of this. What are we seeing here? What is this? What is it tracing the history of exactly?
It's looking at like starting with the normal school because we're broken down into different decades. We had different schools as we grew and as more land was available, we became bigger. So it's broken down starting from the normal school up and today where we're the university. And we looked at everything. We tried to look at buildings, when things were erected, new clubs that founded that are still here today, bunch of art programs like the theater department. We went a lot into that. The Greek life, that was a huge part as well. Trying to think, what else did we all do?
A lot of sports.
A lot of sports, yeah, that's definitely a
sports as
big
well.
big part. And then every single case we have has an artwork in it, whether it's a photograph or it's a painting or a drawing. There is art in
Banana Day
yeah,
t-shirt.
the Banana Day t-shirt, whether it's a graphic design, a cover for a magazine, every single thing in here has art touching it. And it's just amazing to see all of it put together and just see the last 150 years and how it has changed.
Yeah. And I think that's really important though, right? I mean, we were a normal school when we were founded in 1871. It was to teach teachers, you know, it was to teach really high school age students. So 16 years old, really be elementary school teachers. And I think, you know, some of the things, if we look at this timeline, Aaron, I think you'll take people around a little bit later. What you'll see is we had, you know, one of the first gyms. So sports was really big. We wanted to do that, but also from the very first year, we had different literary societies, art societies. Arts were real and humanities were always really an important factor. So, you know, we're gonna, I guess, flash forward a little bit, right? To go to John. John, are you around? You wanna take over?
Yep, you want to take over?
Am I up? Good? Yep.
Yep.
So I'm gonna come out and see you because I don't wanna be with these guys anymore. I've seen them for like a year. But, so I'll meet you over there. But we'll see you guys. All right, thanks, John.
Okay, am I up?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you for the invitation to be able to share all our sculpture on campus. Today, to date, we have over 40 individual sculptures, starting from Slope, going all the way up to Commonwealth and down to South Campus. The piece that I'm sitting at today is the aluminum bench, Form 2-88 by Thomas Sternal. This was one of our first major acquisitions, which used to be housed in front of Mitchell Hall when the art department was there. We acquired this in 1989 under President Parent. I have to give a shout out that the administration and the foundation have been supportive throughout the years to help us bring individual donors and acquisitions on campus. This piece, you know, again, when we started to relocate things from Mitchell and Quad, we encompassed the EO Full Center for the Arts on all sides. Whichever direction you come from, you'll be able to see sculpture. Now, if we can turn the camera, spring is in the air. To this side, and I guess I have to say, I'm sorry about the noise, but we have S. Shaw, the three sculptures coming up the pathway between Swope and Neo Fold, all represent the study and form. These are all Corten steel and painted steel, where the bench that I was sitting on is all aluminum, which will weather and stay for the ages. Now, from here, if we move down to Swope, to the front of Swope, we replaced what is called the shade, but I located it, and when we acquired this piece, I felt that it really resonated to a score for the music department. So we placed it in the Hoberman Plaza to really create an entryway for the Swope building. Now, from here, and you could tell spring again is in the air, everybody's out playing. But to my left, and if we can zoom in, we have Hill Dweller, which here was done by Harry Gordon. Hill Dweller was originally the old oak that stood in front of Phillips. When it had to be taken down, the piece was commissioned to be sculpted and recreated into the form that it is today. Now, all the sculptures around EO Bowl are donations from Mural and Philip Berman. They all came out of his sculpture workshop from a number of years. So again, we started collecting and continued to collect for a good 20 years. Now we're going to take a stroll up the pathway, move towards our next location of sculptures. Now, again, as we walk through, I'd like to identify some of our donors, and you'll hear this again. Oh, look, we have a special guest coming. Hi, Michael. Good to see you.
Wow, fancy meeting you here.
Yeah, great to see you. But we're going to head up towards the next location. But we've been very fortunate. Again, the administration and the foundation have been supportive, but we've had some really phenomenal donors. Philip and Muriel Berman, as I mentioned, the Postel Family Trust, which we're going to be coming up to next, Helga Knox, Liz and Michael Kalopris, and our Honorable Clifford D. Batiste, just to mention some of our primary. Now here, we're coming on to the Postel sculptures. Of the 40 pieces that we own, 40 plus pieces, 20 of them are we actually have the largest collection of this sculpture across the world. We were fortunate enough to acquire these when the Berman Museum at Versailles had the assessed the sculpture. So we acquired them through the Postel Trust. And with the assistance of my colleague Andrew Snyder, he and I got a box truck. We went up.
That's how it's done, right?
While the pen was still, while the ink was still wet, and we loaded these in, and we brought them back so that we could move. Now, I'm pleased to say that around the corner, we have another grouping of at least 18, but we have a special guest here with us today. Rhoda Kahler has come to join us, and Rhoda is the artist, creator, and alum who created this beautiful mural for us for EO Bowl. So Rhoda, welcome.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
What can you tell us about this mural?
Well, this lower half where we started is 85 feet by 15 feet, and this was the beginning, and then it progressively grew. But this is painted and handmade tile along with commercial tile, and I had the honor of creating a mural at my alma mater.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Great. Well, let's throw into the courtyard, because when we were designing EO Bowl, we purposely left this area, come on in, Rhoda. We purposely left this area open with the concept that eventually this will become a mural. And that's where Rhoda came into play. We also wanted to create a courtyard where eventually sculptures would be here. So everything, as the pieces came together, it really created this environment. Now, Rhoda, I know you had a huge community involvement. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. Starting from the very beginning, there's over 500 handmade tiles. All the circles that you see are handmade tiles. They're in a soft green palette, which when I was trying to figure out the color palette and the idea for the mural, you notice the rest of the buildings on this side of the campus all have a green tint. So I wanted to kind of make it homogeneous with the rest of its environment. So there's over 500 handmade tiles made by me and the community in my studio. And then when we came in to work at the university, it was so awesome because I got to work with all the college students. They would come down, they would work with me. I would show them how to cut glass, cut tile safely. And we had 2 stories of scaffolding, and it was fantastic. The community was amazing. It was just full circle. Everybody would honk. I'd hear honking out by the car. People would wave and give cheers. as we were working or standing on the scaffolding, people would bring me, when it got cold, they'd bring me hats or hot chocolate at night.
It was truly an event for months.
It
Months
was.
on-
How long did that take you?
How do you remember better than
I think it wasn't too much over a month.
Okay.
But it started because we had to be started as soon as the freezing temperatures stopped, and then I think we had it done in early May, so it was a little
Yeah.
over a month.
Yeah. So,
But, no, I'm very proud of it. It's called The Transition. That's the title of it,
okay.
and it continues around the clock.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to have it continued, so we'll take a look at that side, and we have 2 more sculptures on this site to take a look at.
Thanks for stopping by.
And thank you too. We have another one of your pieces in the museum as well, which we'll see in a second.
I'm proud to be
Was that
part of the
Kahler?
collection. I'm gonna go this way.
We were able to have a continuation of Rhoda's mural. So a lot of the concept was that as we have people coming up High Street to enter campus, that this would be sort of an entryway or focal point. So not only coming from Swope to EO Gould did we create a sculpture walkway, but we wanted people to be really involved with the arts as they enter up coming from the south. So this really, I've gotten so many comments about when I come up on the campus, I see the reflective mural, I see the sculptures, I see the figures. So I think we were successful in that, right? So we have a couple more pieces up around the corner.
I just love how I got to shout because I don't have a mic, but I love that. You know, we even have the students are using the artwork, you know, to make their own.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a 3-piece bench by Thomas Stern. And this piece came from the quad, and they were here. So again, it's a resting space, and then the garden became part of the space. I think probably 2 to 3 years ago. I think the COVID period has set me off a little.
It looks good though. Still.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was right before COVID because this is, I got to make a plug for our last tour on sustainability because this is one of our 4 campus gardens and it is a paragon of sustainability. It's a dye garden. So Kate and the students actually grow organics to convert into dyes for fabrics and for paint.
Yeah, it's all for the pigments.
Right.
Under page 2. Yeah. Great. Now let's loop around the corner. We have one more, and then we'll get our steps in to get to Frederick Douglass.
Are you going to talk, or you want Aaron to say a couple things? Or?
We're right around our corner here. We're going to hit our last sculpture, which encompasses, again, every side of EO Gould. And this is Double Disc by Paul Cisco. And it's 410 steel. Those who have been around may recall this piece sitting in the center of the quad. And then when the quad was redesigned, again, we wanted to relocate everything. So we were fortunate enough to bring it here. Again, it becomes another signature piece, a landmark. So as people are coming across Rosedale, we say, look for Double Disc, look for the big, and it's been called other names, which I won't use. So we say, look for that, and you'll see the art building. So again, this is another one of the sculptures. Okay, so again, between all the work that encompasses the, I call it the arts quadrant of campus, which may not be true, but all the collections have come from Muriel Berman's sculpture workshop, along with the Tom Bostel Trust. So we're fortunate to have this project work. All right, from here, we're going to head over to Frederick Douglass next.
Well, we're gonna head over to the Ram
Because we have the video.
Oh, we're gonna get to the Ram. Okay, I'm gonna follow your lead. So let's head that way.
All right, we'll see you in a little bit. And he's going to change into a different outfit.
Yeah, yeah. See you soon. Well, a tour of the sculpture on campus would not be complete without including the Ram. The Ram is probably the most photographed sculpture that we have, whether it be for commencement or students making their first visit to campus. This sculpture was created by James Marsico. It's a cast bronze, and we have to thank SSI for their generous contribution and fundraising through the years of 2003 to 2007. Through the students and their generosity, we were able to acquire this sculpture.
I was going to ask how did this come about that they wanted to put up a statue?
Well, being the golden rams that we are,
Right.
We thought it would be only appropriate to have a ram sculpture on campus. And really, the concept was generated through the students. The student bodies really wanted to acquire a ram and have it be one of our signature sculptures.
And how they picked the sculptor? Is it?
Well, we reviewed a number of sculptors
Yeah.
that did actually animal-based sculpture.
Okay.
And this sculpture was the one selected. We were able to take a road trip to see some of his work and really make sure it was what we wanted to acquire.
And then you had told me earlier that he made others as well, so we could see
Yeah.
Rammy all across the country, Montana, things like that.
Yeah, you'll find this artist's work throughout the country in a number of locations.
That's great.
Being a cast bronze, as it is, can be duplicated.
Right. Well, it's wonderful that it's right in front of the Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology, so
Yeah.
I get to look at it every day.
Excellent. Well, from here, let's head over to the planetarium. We have much more sculpture to cover.
Great.
Here we are outside the Mather Planetarium. I think this is one of those hidden jewels on campus where we have David Beck's sun sculpture and Rhoda Kahler's mosaic called Constellation. This site was generously funded by Helga Knox. We have to thank Helga for her support. David Keith's sun sculpture is a fabricated and welded steel sculpture that's powder coated. What's interesting is that it is actually solar powered, so at night, through all these little openings within the yellow sphere, it radiates these little beams of light. And along with that, Rhoda's mosaic with all the mirrors, the light up above is positioned so at night they reflect and it looks like a galaxy of stars on the ground.
Yeah, and I just noticed that they have Saturn and everything else. You have these very planetarium kind of motifs, right?
Rhoda really did her homework. She really studied the astronomy and came prepared to really address what the planetarium is all about.
Right, and this is so different. Her mosaic is so different than the sculptural piece that we have inside the WCU 150 gallery.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
She's a pretty talented, diverse ceramic artist.
That's great. And did she teach here as well? Or no?
She's an alum, and she also teaches as an adjunct.
Yeah, right.
So, with David's sculpture, if we could just jump back to that, this is also kinetic in respect to it does rotate and turn. So, given certain days, you'll find maybe somebody came along or the wind pushed it some and it moved. So every time I pass by, it's in a different position. So here again, I don't encourage people to do this to sculpture, but I just wanted to make sure I shared this component with you.
I'm sure it was spinning yesterday. We had a terrible storm.
That's right,
so.
yeah.
And I love this area. I mean, this is one of the very appropriate sculpture for the area, because behind you, you also, in addition to the planetarium, you have one of our 4 gardens on campus, and this is a great green space. It's a space where we see somebody working as well, to be planting as well. So it's really pretty appropriate.
Right.
And of course, inside the planetarium, you have your own little sculptures on the wall, on a mosaic right inside when you come in.
We have the Shooting Stars, which is a fundraising effort for the planetarium, along with the student art gallery that's always changing. in conjunction with that, if you do come by this site, if you turn around the corner, you'll see 4 doors that our art majors have all painted murals on, which here again all relate to the environment. So in a straight line from here, we're going to go visit Naked Alien, our next sculpture on campus.
Great. Well, so we just saw the sun and now we're seeing aliens. Is that the point here?
Yeah, this is our next stop. We have the Naked Alien here by Jeff Kahn. Here again, this piece was generously donated by Liz and Michael Kahler. They also, will see shortly, another series of sculptures. These sculptures all resided at their property at one time, and they were so generous to really give them to us to enhance our collection of the sculptures.
Were they alumni?
No, they're just very, very fond of Westchester.
That's great.
But their daughter is an alum of Westchester.
That's great.
And still a very active alum.
Wow. So why Naked Alien?
That's a good question. I mean, that question has come to me on numerous occasions. I do not have an answer for that. I think we'll have to reach out to the artist to really get that.
But it's great because you have this sight line, right? If you know, from the planetarium and the kinetic sun to the kinetic alien. I think that's great.
Yeah. So again, if one is doing a walking tour, this is part of the path.
Sure.
So what was interesting is when we went to the artist's studio to actually pick this piece up, you know, he had probably 20 kinetic sculptures like this throughout his property. So it was really amazing. I mean, the dynamic of them, but also just the ability to create something that has such balance and grace.
Really
pretty phenomenal.
It's true. Yeah.
So, well, are there any other questions you have on the alien? If not,
no, not really. I mean, I like that they're all different media, right? I mean, that's another thing. I mean, you really do have the sun. We had the Rami, which was bronze. I mean, now we have this aluminum, which is a lighter.
Yeah, this is aluminum.
Space age kind of a.
Yeah, aluminum and stainless steel.
Yeah.
So it will weather for the ages.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, from here we're going to venture into looking at the thread. That's next on our list. Well, our next stop is here at Thread. Thread is done by John Clement, and again, it's a generous donation from Liz and Michael Kahler. Kate Cipriato is their daughter. I have to give her a shout out again because she's been so involved with the Alumni Foundation and also alum. I meant to mention at our last site. The thread is iron. It's all painted and fabricated steel. Again, I know when we first installed the thread, there was a lot of curiosity. One thing I have to say is I really respect our students because they respect the sculpture and all the art on campus.
Yeah. And this is really in the heart. You got these we're going to see two more of these sculptures, and it's really in the heart of kind of the new residence hall area. Right. So students are coming by all the time. Do they ever make any mention of these things? There's somebody tapping now. Right?
Yeah. It's applause, I'm sure.
It's applause, right?
Yeah.
Do we hear any feedback on
periodically, every so often I'll hear something, but when we first installed the work is really when the buzz starts.
Right.
And what we tried to do within this area of Commonwealth and USH is to create a triangle of 3 sculptures all donated by the same donors.
But they're all different, which I think is also really nice. Different media as well.
Different media, different artists at each one. Right. So from here we'll venture and we'll see our next sculpture.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, our next stop outside of Commonwealth Hall, we picked this site for a black granite done by Harry Gordon. We wanted a little more intimate site because this is reflective of 9/11 and the incident in Pennsylvania specifically. It actually is a metaphor, if you will, of the airplane itself. So again, we wanted more of a contemplative site instead of being out as Thread was, more in the open public.
Right. I mean, we just moved a couple of feet really, but it is quieter. It's kind of secluded, but you do get, you know, that motif of the Flight 93, United Flight 93 that crashed in Shanksville.
Yeah. So again, we're fortunate that Liz and Michael were able to relinquish this from their extensive collection and have it come to Westchester University to be part of our permanent collection.
The three that we're seeing right now, the one before this one and the next one, were they all placed around the same time?
These three in this site were placed at the
It's pretty
same
recent,
time.
correct?
Yeah, just within the past 3.5 years. Naked Alien was prior to that.
I think it was 2017 or
Correct.
something.
Yeah. And the one site that we won't have time to get to is South Campus, where there is the Boxer, which is another donation that came from the Colocris collection. So,
Well, I'm thinking about, you know, thinking about sculptures on campus. I mean, you have the Michael Horrocks sculpture,
we do.
which of course commemorates Michael Horrocks, who was the second pilot on, I think, one of the flights as well in 9/11, and of course our star quarterback in the 80s and a Marine.
Right.
So
yeah. So again, there's more to see. Unfortunately, we won't have time today to get to all of it.
yeah.
We have one more site to visit as we're doing this virtual walking tour. So let's head up the hill. We're at one of our last sites here near USH. It's called Mountain Raptor 1, done by Jean Michel. This is also a cast bronze piece. We selected this site because we wanted to really have it up on a plane, like as if it was sitting on a mountain. And when the grasses are in full green, it really stands out as a very individualized piece.
I'm sure it pops.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, the organic quality of it really resonates within this landscape here.
I really do like, I mean, I think the selection of these three are really well done, you know, and because they're all a little different, but they all complement each other. I mean, you know, we're looking at this very heavy, you know, both thematically, but also, you know, structurally, granite sculpture, and then you get this, it's very light, even though it's bronze, you know, bronze, it's light, and I can imagine with all the green around it, it really would pop. But it still has the wings, you know, so you're getting that kind of...
It's really juxtaposed
really well.
The other pieces.
Yeah. I mean, we're not far from any of these pieces.
No, and the thread brings a little bit of that red pop color into this quadrant.
Right.
So, great. Well, from here, I think we're going to head over to the museum next.
Yeah. All right. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Are we back?
Yep.
After a quick wardrobe change,
Yeah,
we're back.
going to coordinate.
We're back on site.
I'm wearing this thing again.
Yeah. Well, we're honored and so pleased to have Richard Blake with us here at the Di Batiste Plaza. Richard, the creator, the inspiration, so much more than just that for what we see here today. So Richard, welcome. Please share with us some of your ideas and thoughts.
Well, thank you, John.
This is a young Frederick Douglass. This was a crowning point of my teaching career here at Westchester University, which was some 35 years of teaching sculpture and three-dimensional design. And I wanted to portray Frederick Douglass as a very young man instead of the older politician that we usually see sculptures of him. He's shown here with a rope slung across his shoulders, symbolically very important that it's broken, and the broken rope is a symbol of his freedom, of breaking his bondage. And again, this is a symbol that was used from Greek times to Roman times and so on. In his left hand, he has a cane that belonged to Abraham Lincoln. And upon Lincoln's assassination, his wife bequested this cane to Douglass, saying that Lincoln would want Douglass to have this cane. By the way, Frederick Douglass, even though he's not known in history to a great number of folks in our population, he is the most photographed of any figure in the 19th century, even more photographed than Abraham Lincoln, which I find is like really curious. I am about ready to do the latest one of Frederick Douglass, which is an even younger man, and he is 19, perhaps 20. And I equivocate about the dates because as a slave, he was never really sure exactly when his birthday was. And that will be erected in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And that will be on Abolition Row Park. And that was a place that he was glad to be able to call home. And I'm looking forward to that come September 2022.
So Richard, one of the things you said the first time, and I wanted you to repeat it too. Why did you make him young for this campus?
Oh, okay. I made him young because teaching, I would overhear students talking and complaining about the dorms, the lack of facilities, the cafeteria, and so on. And, of course, the older generation, that was better than anything we grew up with. And that was, and we didn't consider that we were like having a hard time of it. But I thought that, they should have a hero that's closer to their age that they could identify with. And also where they could see someone who had to overcome difficulties that were so much greater and succeeded, so sterlingly well.
Perfect, Richard. Well, I know we had quite a initiative to have this become a reality. I believe, was it over 2 years in the process?
Every bit of it was a push forward.
Yeah.
The little plaza here was not part of the initial plans. This was going to go, I think they were talking about it going right on the grass there, and which just would not have worked at all. And this is all donations that came as a result of that. And I think it works out, exceedingly well. Actually, at one point, they were talking about having it across campus, and it was supposed to be down low, right, with almost ample seats around it. And I thought, well, I don't. That doesn't sound like what we want. So.
We wanted to make sure symbolically it was placed here, not only because the great oak was here, but it also aligns with the arches. So as you again enter through the arches of Phillips, you come onto the plaza. I have to give a shout out to Dr. James Trotman and Dr. Mitt Joyner for their guidance and leadership in this project, and not to, as I already mentioned, not to ignore Clifford D. Baptiste for all his support and guidance.
Actually, he was insistent and put large amount of cash up front to make sure that this venture took place and was done the way that it should be done. So we owe them a great debt of gratitude.
Right. Yeah, I think this is the perfect place. I mean, you can't really get a better place. Also because we have this linkage right between Phillips and Frederick Douglass, and we'll see it in the exhibition room where we do have both his autobiography next to Phillips' desk. So we do have that kind of, we wanted to convey that sense of relationship.
Although all the history wasn't all that great here. Because, they had lynchings not too far away, but that was common.
Well, I didn't mean to steal your mic. From here, I think we're going to head to the museum. That will be our next stop.
Aaron, ask Aaron to do the.
Aaron will give us a little insight. But before we leave our tour here, I just want to resonate that all the sculptures are placed with a lot of thought. As you could see from the previous video and maybe what we did here, they all resonate specifically for a very specific reason, for a site-specific location. Our hope is that, I know we have some other possible donations coming forward, which we do have a process we go through, but at the same time, eventually we want to create a walking tour map. So visitors on campus can identify pretty much what we've done today and be able to walk through and visit all the sites. So again, thank you, Richard. We're going to join us in the museum next. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Baker and Dr. Blake. That was a great tour. And now we're going to go over a brief tour of our exhibit space. As Maddy talked about, really we could say any of these pieces are art, but we really want to highlight the work of students and how their role in the arts program has been transformative, as well as the work of faculty as well. So we're going to start off with the Aryan and Moore Societies. They were our first two organizations on campus. The Moore Society started 8 days after the school opened for the first time in 1871, and the Aryan Society formed 8 years later in 1879. And these, as I said, they were the only two clubs on campus. They were massive. You couldn't find a student, you could hardly find students that weren't a member of them. And they had their own orchestras, they had their own theater troupes, they had their own debate teams. As you can see here, we have a play book from the Aryan Society, and it just shows the role of student organizations in advancing the arts, even if we didn't have a formal art program at the time. Now coming over here to 1892, we have a couple points that we want to hit on. One, Recitation Hall, the oldest building currently standing on campus. Many of you may wonder, as I have, why is it called Recitation Hall? Well, that's because recitation was a huge part of the normal school curriculum. It was thought that by memorizing and delivering poems, that would best prepare teachers for memorizing lesson plans and delivering those lessons in front of a class. Also in 1892, we have our first edition of the Amulet, which would later become the Quad that we all know. This was created out of a fusion of the two literary societies. They had their own publications, the Aryan Review and the Moore Literary Gazette. In winter 1891, they said, you know what, why are we doing this? Let's just make our own for the whole campus. And that's how we got the Amulet. Coming over here, we have a beautiful piece, which is in a yearbook. This is the 1935 edition of the Serpentine, which won an award from the National Scholastic Press Association for its artwork of the campus buildings, as you can see right there. Now, coming over to the State College era, this was really the beginning of our transformation into a liberal arts institution. We were not just a teaching institution. And in 1967, we had a huge reorganization of the school into 4 different institutions. That is the College of Arts and Sciences, the School of Music, the School of Education, and the School of Health Sciences and Health Education. Now, as you could tell, the College of Arts and Sciences were the only college for the State College at the time. So that just demonstrates how essential the arts and humanities were to the university's curriculum as it expanded beyond just a teaching institution. Then moving on to the university era, we couldn't make this trip without mentioning our first female president, Madeline Adler, who took over in 1992. She was a huge proponent of the arts and theater to the point that the new theater built in 2006 was named after her. Also during her tenure, we began the annual poetry conference in 1995, which invites local and international poets to come and perform at Westchester. Slam poetry, all different styles. And this culminates also in 2005 when we had an endowment, the Iris Spencer Poetry Award, which gives out 3 grants annually to emerging and established poets for their continued work. So that's all I have for this part of the tour. And now Maddy is going to take you through our arts exhibit case that we have.
Hello, I'm Maddy. I'm going to talk about the arts case that we have here. So as Erin already went over, the Aryan Society, it's their playbook from 1960, and then the Moore Literary Society Minute Book. Unfortunately, both clubs, as you mentioned, didn't last very long. The Aryan, because of their name after the 1930s, 1940s, kind of died out, and so did the Moore Literary Society because it just wasn't as popular anymore. Talking about Devin Giovine, he was an alumni from Westchester University. He is a R&B, blues and souls artist, and he has been on the Jimmy Kimmel Show and the Colbert Show and has won 3 Emmys. We also have, as mentioned, Rhoda's ceramic work here. We have salt and pepper shakers from Brian Hopkins, who got his degree in mathematics from Westchester University and went on to go to SUNY, which is in New York, and he has been published several times. And then lastly, this painting up here is by alumnus Rachel Sebelist and is a pandemic art that she did during the quarantine in 2020, which is titled Perfection Exists, and it explains mental health and a hope for the future.
Yeah, she just came in today. Hello, we just got here. Now you can hear us, hopefully. Yeah, she just came again today to take a look, and it was really a delight to be partnering. We have one of yours up here as well. We have Richard's over here. You're all represented in here, so we're really happy. While you're here, can we ask to talk a little bit about Woven and
Sure.
and what it's about?
Yeah, I would be happy to, and especially that I'm with 2 of my clay teachers, my sculpture teacher and my ceramic professor from college, which is really cool for me. My work is usually inspired by stuff from nature. So whether it's the tree roots woven together in the ground when you're walking and you see how nature interweaves with the way we walk on it, that we're interacting, whether the tree limbs and the texture, very organic, very earthy. And I love working with clay because it is of the earth. It is the earth taking mud and creating something out of nothing. So the orb, I have a whole orb series, and everything is based on organic forms and nature.
Looks very metallic. It has that.
It has a steel quality. I do weld as well, so no pun intended. But steel and clay are my medium, and I just that's kind of.
Yeah, and so what you were saying, because this is the same kind of, almost the same kind of green. When I first saw your mosaic outside of the old bowl, I also thought, oh, is it like patina?
Yes.
At first, but you were saying it was kind of trying to bounce off this idea of the serpentine structures like Old Main.
Yes.
That we see here. Is that what you were going for? Kind of the.
I love aging, decaying materials. The urban decay, steel, stone, clay, earth. So that it's interesting because that is my favorite color.
You're wearing.
I wear. You don't see me without
your cell phone.
Everything's just. It's my favorite color, and I think it is the decay, the changing. Copper. It's like it's alive and it's in constant movement, which kind of keeps me excited.
Right. I mean, I like the organic nature. I think it pairs well with this, with Rachel's, her pandemic, series of paintings was really about perfection existing when she was locked down, in that 2020, really spoke to the time period that we're in here, but you have that kind of play on the life and organics. The whole exhibition, I don't know if you heard before, but this whole thing is about transformations, right? From our earliest in 1871 when we started as a normal school all the way until today. So you have that. There's an organic nature, I think, also to the exhibit itself.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
And then Richard, what we were talking about before, just for I don't know, Aaron, did you point out any of these artifacts really quickly? I mean, this is Philip's desk that he wrote on, and then of course next to it we do have the 3rd autobiography of Frederick Douglass. Signed by Frederick Douglass, and the story is that they wrote back and forth. Phillips, did you talk about? I don't know. Did you talk about this? Right? Phillips, would get different first edition books that were published. We also have Jules Verne over here and Leo Tolstoy, and he would send it to people and ask to autograph it. And then when they would send it back, when Frederick Douglass sent it back, he said, "Well, you should really come to Westchester." And they had this great correspondence that went back and forth, and were fortunate to have all of Frederick Douglass's correspondence. Of course, we know what happened to Phillips because it was with the Douglass family. But of course, he said, come and speak. And that's when, you know, he did speak. He wanted to kind of pull out because he was getting sick. And, you know, Phillips said, well, you promised. You kind of guilted him into staying. And then he passed away less than 2 weeks, I think, after he spoke here. But we're really fortunate. I think these are one of the prized possessions. You know, as you said, it's a photograph of him right on the cover there. I mean, he's the most photographed person of that era. So.
And fortunate enough to have the Historical Society right in town. I think that also has some pretty interesting photographs of Douglass.
Yeah.
We have the working maquette of Richard's Frederick Douglass over here from what's out on the quad. So, and Richard, this was the original prototype, or how did?
Well, this was one of probably a half a dozen. The maquettes is a working model that deals mainly with the concept of what you're going to do, and before you start spending a lot of time on a final piece. And the idea being, it's a very traditional approach, age-old approach. The idea being that the first ideas are the least informed and the least mature, and you want the vision to come to fruition as you're beginning to work through it. So once I got approval from the committee, and it was a great committee, very easy to work with, and very reinforcing. But once I got the go sign from the committee, then it went to the 1/3 size. I no longer quite remember, but that's what I do standardly. So I think it's about 1/3. About 3.5 is what I usually go up in terms of the monument. And this is a pretty tight prototype of what ended up happening with the large piece. So this is heavier than I remember.
Be careful, that I own that.
I was going to ask. Yeah, I was going to ask. So again, this is Mr. Douglass as a youth. No fuzz on his chin yet. Although later, what I did do is I did make a little bit of growth around his chin just to sort of experiment with it. And I love that lion's mane of hair, and that was such a great pride to it. There was a very interesting story that I heard that up in New Bedford, up in New Bedford, and they said that Mr. Douglass had a mirror at the bottom of his stairway, and when he came down the steps, he would always sort of look towards the mirror and practice that sort of grimace, the frown. He thought that there was no way that a slave or an ex-slave should be anything other than indignant and so on. And he carried that through a lifetime. But I do think, because of the construction of his face and so on, he had a very handsome man. And I just loved everything about his features. So the idea again was a catching mid-stride, as if he's moving forward, but has a moment of hesitation. And the forward is not just a physical next step takes you here and there, but it's metaphysical, moving forward in the sense of his visions and so on. So,
are there questions from the
group? Jenna, Bridget, are there questions from the group?
We haven't had any questions in the chat, but we can certainly open it up to anyone who's interested in asking questions. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions to our presenters here tonight.
I guess we answered them all.
Well, while we're hesitating just for a minute, I'd like to invite anyone who tunes into this later to go into the New Bedford Historical Society website. And you can see, of course, his papers and so on, but you'll also see sketches as well as the maquette of where the next Douglass statue is going to be installed. And again, this is a very young Douglass, This is a Douglas that's seated instead of standing. And
Is he gonna have the
he'll
ropes?
no, he will not have any ropes, but he will have Douglas's cane. And I tried to put myself in a situation of a guy who, this is the first time when he's feeling free. And even feeling free, there's a hesitation because his freedom could be taken from him at any moment. Remember, there was a federal law that endorsed slave hunters going any place and recouping property. So I depicted Douglas seated as a very young man in sort of a casual sort of position, with his coat slung over one shoulder, his hand grasping the cane that Douglas had given him, but seated after a day's work, tired, but contemplating where to from here. You know, now that he has a chance at freedom, these were all things that he thought about ever since he was old enough to begin to conceive of it. You know, what's the next step? Where to? So
Right, really interesting.
and that's still the question, where to from here?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Richard.
Well, thank you.
Did I see a chat pop
Do
up?
we have a question?
Thought I saw something pop.
No question, but Sally said that this is a fabulous tour. So nice to see the creator of the Douglas statue. So iconic. Can't wait for the map to do my own tour.
Yeah, great.
Stay tuned. We'll be working on that.
I would like to thank all of you, though. This was tremendous. Certainly, I was fortunate enough to learn from both Professor Baker and Professor Blake as a student. And I would be remiss to say that obviously Professor Blake and Rhoda, your installments are on campus. John Baker, you have had such a tremendous impact on the university, but even more so on the art community. I know that our students and alumni, everyone comes back for John. You can visit campus, the EO Bull Center. We have the John Baker Gallery on the main floor. And I highly recommend coming by to check out all of the student artwork. Our senior exhibit will be going up. I believe it's available next weekend for Alumni Weekend.
Yep, that's correct.
And also a couple notes. So for anyone who's interested, there is a virtual tour of the entire museum available on the university website. If you go to the homepage and click on the 150 logo right in the upper left-hand corner, you'll be able to see all the different things that happened for this 150th celebration throughout the year. And again, our final lecture and tour will be next Tuesday evening, focusing on sustainability here at Westchester University. So you can register on our website at wcualumni.org. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them now. And Michael, I'll let you, if you have any final notes for us.
Sure. Well, I did want to thank everyone. Thanks so much for coming. It was such a pleasure. And I think we ended the entire exhibition room with the arts, because I think it ties in, as I said in the beginning, every exhibit has some artwork in it. And of course, as the humanities, the arts are an expression of what it is to be human, right? And what it is to be our university is conveyed a lot in the very diversity of artwork that we have here. There is another piece of art, actually, and I have to say, thinking about this virtual tour on campus and everything, the art, you can also come and visit this exhibition virtually. It'll be up even after we close this down physically. It's at our website, wcupa.edu/museum or wcupa.edu/WCU150 virtual exhibition. And it's a 3D Google Maps. You can come in, you can explore both of your artwork. There'll be blurbs about it, and you can also hear this recording as well. But next week, next Saturday, the 23rd, is the big showcase weekend. It's alumni weekend. It's our big showcase where everything is on display. And at 3 p.m. we close it down. We're going to bring out the time capsule that we have here in the center. Dr. Fiorentino is going to put in a letter to the community 50 years in the future. And then that's it. We'll keep this up for another week and then shut it all down. So if you haven't had a chance to see this exhibition, it's located in the Francis Harvey Green Library on the main floor, right to the right of the circulation desk, if you can see it. And if not, it'll live virtually as well. And of course, come and see the Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology, which is an old library, and we'll be showing one of the two exhibitions that we have up, the Earth Day at 50 exhibition for Earth Week next week, when we do our last thematic tour on sustainability at Westchester. So thanks so much. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you, Jenna, who's on, I think, as well. And thanks to all our guests for today. And of course, to our curators, Julia Zom, who's behind the camera, and Maddy Maychak and Aaron Stoyack for another really great tour. So thanks so much again.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Bridget.